reckless gambler who'd first persuaded Margaret to stay in England and the war cry you hear there on
the coup de grace
and cuts his throat just.
Two very boring minutes later.
It matters. It matters because it destroys an entire royal family, the House of Lancaster. And it happened because of a single genetic accident that the king at the time, who had an absolutely perfect right to rule, went mad. Didn't rave, didn't scream, just went catatonic. He just sat there on his throne and everywhere else, and when they asked him to do anything, he dribbled a bit. And that was the lot. And in a medieval kingdom, you can't run the show with a king like that. So quite...
Archers are making a move. You see the captain of the archers there way out in front.
Again, become a bit closer.
And a returning volley there, falling somewhat short from Margaret's front flank of archers. The Yorkists have got their eye in rather better than the Lancastrians have. They're getting a lot more hits per volley than the Lancastrians are. You have to imagine this multiplied, like I said, by about 4,000. You can imagine how terrifying it was. And they say at the end of the Battle of Stonecroft, appear to have, would that be a pair of Lancastrian scouts who've been out to see what's going on? Do you think that's what it is?
Yes, the Lancastrian army itself has yet to arrive, and we're going to see it arriving quite shortly with each of its magnificent units, and that's when Kat and I will be introducing you to the characters on the field.
Two Lancastrian scouts there shouting "Anjou," they're saying which side they're on.
You'll hear a lot of that war cry in a short while, and we'll tell you why when most of those who are going to shout it arrive. Being an archer takes years of training. You have to start as a boy, and you're ready to take the real battlefield by the time you're in your late teens. One of the reasons why guns took over from longbows is that you can teach a musketeer to use that weapon within a week. You need years to produce a trained archer. It's just too labour intensive to build up the muscles needed to pull those bows. And those of you on the far right of the field will see the vanguard of the Lancastrian army arriving. It will be passing right in front of all of you over the next few minutes. The men of the West Country of England fighting for Lancaster, now passing down the centre of our line and passing to the left. And those of you on the far right will see our star characters of the Lancastrian command. Queen Margaret of Anjou herself, and to her right-hand side, her young son, 18 years old, Edward, Prince of Wales, burning to avenge that reckless gambler who first persuaded Margaret to stay in England. The war cry you hear there is from duty. It is a ritual to be observed, and that's why Edward is marching forward with his powerful, stocky, tall figure to the fore, with the dual figures of the Queen in her long white veil and her son in his surcoat at the head of the other group. And they pause and they look at each other, each daring the other to lose a bit of dignity and to be the one to come.
Prince of Wales and the King stop. They speak.
They bow to each other rather peremptorily, the courtesy you would give to a knight or a social equal, not to a sovereign. And Edward has shoved the prince, and the prince pushes him back. They've come to blows already. Clearly this was never going to... Oh, and the Queen is...
She will for France, there you go.
You can almost hear the sound of that slap that Queen Margaret has given Edward's face from here. And Edward's just boxed the prince, and the prince has thumped him on his midriff. This is not chivalric behaviour.
Very far from it.
Well, that's it. We've come to insults and vituperation. And with a last curse, the king leads his men back towards his own army. And Margaret's slender, dignified figure walks beside her son back towards theirs.
Yes,
and what's going to happen now is pure horror.
And Margaret watched it all, so the saying goes, from the top of Tewkesbury Abbey. So she had a grandstand position of the way all of this planned out, all across the fields and rhynes and ditches and drains of Tewkesbury.
And there is the fog of battle, fortunately dispersing on the field before it reaches our lines. So both our throats and our tummies are going to be okay.
Oh, I love the smell of gunpowder in the afternoon.
To us it speaks of victory.
Amen.
Not yet.
Oh, there they come on the others.
And there are the ancestors of the musket, the arquebuses, the hackbutts, going off at the moment. Again, very primitive, dangerous, not very accurate. But again, you're firing into a solid body of lead. You don't really have to aim very much. You just let the lead do its work.
Yes, they say that one of the balls would go through the man it hit, the man behind him, and the man behind him, and possibly his horse as well.
Oh gosh.
So it would appear the King's army is doing a few warm-ups over there. Words don't very often fail me, they just have.
That was too funny.
In all seriousness though, the armour, the first thing that the gentlemen get asked, is that heavy? Yes, it really is. The suits of armour can weigh anything up to 9 stone.
Oh,
Carried
really?
well on the body, however, yes, really rather heavy and actually very, very hot as well. But you can move in it. It's well articulated. Some of the knights are showing off do cartwheels just to impress people in the armour because they can.
They just want to impress me. They just want to impress. That's why they're wearing.
Aiming to punch a hole in the Yorkist line and end the battle immediately. I might add, for those of you on the far left of the field, that the battle will swing to and fro today, so don't feel cheated if the action is going to be on the front, on the right side, for a while.
And you have to use a bit of imagination here as well, because in the actual battle, there's a lot of undulating ground, there are a lot of stands of trees. We know that Gloucester and Clarence actually put a small cavalry of 200 horsemen hidden in some trees, just to bring them out and use them at the crucial moment, which actually probably swung the battle.
Cat, something's gone badly wrong. Most of the Lancastrian line has halted. The Earl of Devon's got his men far too far back. Margaret of Anjou stopped her men, and the Duke of Somerset has decided to launch an attack single-handed upon Richard, Duke of Gloucester's wing. One thing you don't do is break your army into pieces, and the impetuous Duke of Somerset has decided to roll up the Yorkist army from a punch to the right and win the battle. Heroes. And unsupported, they're trying very hard to roll up the Yorkist army. And you can hear that kettle-mending noise of steel against steel, about which the romantic poets wax so lyrical. In fact, what it's denoting is sheer hell.
I don't know about romantic poetry. What it sounds most like is a box of cutlery falling down the stairs. So I can see the livery of the Duke of Somerset at the back there. I believe it's the Duke of Somerset.
It is the Duke of Somerset. He seems astonishingly unwilling to go into the front line of his own men. That's not going to help morale. And by contrast, I can see the surcoat of young Richard underneath his banner, right in the thick of things, encouraging his men. That white plume is waving, with the King leading from the front and Lord Hastings coming up beyond to deal an amazing right hook while Richard's exhausted men recover on the left and try and hit the Lancastrian army hard while it's still expostulating over Somerset's error.
Somerset's cross, calling for Wenlock.
The Duke is cursing Wenlock. He's shouting his name. Clearly what's happened now is Somerset has blamed Wenlock for not coming to support him.
I think my supposition is possibly correct.
It was indeed, although Somerset's impetuosity. And here the young Prince of Wales is leading forward his men to hit King Edward's centre while it's static.
That was brutal.
Yes, they were also very brave. And the Lancastrian centre moving up to engage the Yorkists. And on the far side of the field, the Earl of Devon is sweeping like a great wave against Hastings' troops. The Lancastrians are determined to keep the initiative, but they're still keeping a rear guard to the left. And Somerset's men, like Richard of Gloucester's, are resting and recuperating on the lines nearest to us.
Well, Richard of Gloucester's troop, remember, had backup from the cavalry, which came swinging out of the trees, so they hadn't got as much recuperation to do because they had the upper hand in that particular part of the engagement.
They have indeed, and they'll have a vastly better opinion of their leader than Somerset's men. Somerset's doing what he does best now, which is throw a tantrum and blame everybody else.
Oh, here we go.
Now, excitement is about to reoccur.
Yes, the Lancastrian horsemen, those brave scouts we saw at the beginning, are going to mount a diversion by galloping to the end of the field, wheeling their horses to challenge the Yorkists and see if the Yorkist rider dares come out to meet them, and one has. There should be at least two more, but that brave Yorkist is holding up the honour of his side and is now being attacked by both the Lancastrians, wheeling around each other in the very centre of the field on the far side. Where are the other Yorkist horsemen? The answer seems to be still well to the rear.
That's very unfortunate. Chasing the Yorkists across the field, turning around and at last engaging.
Advancing on the far side against Hastings, and this time the rest of the Lancastrian army, the centre under Wenlock and the Prince, and the one nearest us, the right under Somerset, are more or less coordinating, except that once again it's Somerset's wing that's pushing to the fore, so they're not coordinating.
That's not going to improve Somerset's mood with Wenlock any, is it?
No.
Yep, they're at it again.
Really vicious fighting there in the centre.
Yes, re-enactment's a strange thing. On the one hand, we really don't want to hurt anybody. On the other hand, we don't want, to lose fights. And so there's this curious sort of balance once you're in there in the scrum between being careful not actually to land any injury on the people you're fighting, and yet at the same time not allowing them to beat you too easily. There's a matter of pride involved here.
Oh, there's an immense amount.
The enemy, but when you've fought off an attack that hard and that bold, you actually do need time to get your breath back, wearing armour that heavy and heat this great. And that's why the Yorkist line's not moving.
Oh, here come the refreshments, yeah.
The gunner there managed to shock himself by how loud that bang was. That was kind of cute. So looking at the banners, this is how you found your way on the medieval battlefield, of who was who. You had the livery, what they're wearing, but you also had the banners, and the banners acted as a signal the way you were. It's what went wrong, like Professor Ronald just said, at the Battle of Barnet, where it was foggy and one of the sides mistook the Sun in Splendour for the Oriflamme, which was the wrong banner, and they attacked the back of their own men in the fog, and it all got dreadfully, well, acrimonious is a nice word for it. Oh, the Yorkist horse there. Giving him a second go.
Right, we're going to...
What are they saying?
They're shouting a York, but I believe that's possibly a touch inaccurate.
Well, it's a great thing to shout,
Isn't it?
but to Edward's army at Tewkesbury, they're no longer York, they're England. He's not the Duke of York, he's the King of England, but old habits die hard.
Absolutely.
And it's a great shout. And suddenly, King Edward's leading a charge
Oh dear.
right into the centre of the Lancastrian army, punching through the gap that has opened in it, and the entire Yorkist army is following him. This is a coordinated attack with a stab right at the enemy's heart. A classic battlefield tactic for the first time in this battle. So we're now all going to see everybody engaged. Margaret of Anjou is withdrawing.
Somebody tried to escape off the field and were cut down in vast numbers, or indeed who drowned in the Severn.
But it's possible the battle will still go the way of Lancaster if those who are standing firm. Because although the Yorkists did everything right there, launched a surprise attack with the first blow struck in the centre and the rest of the army coming fast behind. This time Lancaster stood firm. And it's the Yorkist attack that has run out of momentum, just as the Lancastrian one had done before.
Next, is there any hope for the day?
Well, there still is, because the Lancastrian army, like the Yorkist, is still substantially intact. So much can turn now on a single chance.
Guns and gun smoke, horses. Where else can we get a day out of this? And what's really good is the fact that both sides are cheering on their own champions.
The field is now littered with wounded men.
They're not looking too clever, are they?
No.
Oh! I'm never sure that spinning around is a particularly good move. Leaves you wide open to getting thumped right in the bum.
Rather impressively, the pair who fought longest are still at it, and the Yorkist has just obtained the surrender of the Lancastrian. It's rather lovely. Instead of dispatching him, we gave him a chance to save his life by submitting. And he's just done so, and is now congratulating his opponent. Honour on both sides. That's rather lovely to see.
It's rather like a Studio Ghibli film, isn't it?
Yeah.
But a time for kind gestures is probably well over now as we aim towards the tail end of the battle when things really do go quite horribly wrong. Stand by for full advance.
And now the Yorkist army is surging forward once more. It's repeating its tactic of a full attack with King Edward leading from the front, and some of the Lancastrians are deserting.
Some of the gunners are deserted. They're
Yes.
actually going back through the Yorkist lines.
Yes, this does not look good for Lancaster.
They're
Can
defending,
Lancaster
they're
hold this one?
Oh, in he goes, look, bang!
Yes.
Right there. The rest
King
of the army
Edward.
advances at a steadier pace.
King Edward is right there in the Lancastrian centre, and the rest of his entire army following behind.
Always embarrassing when you're late to the block. Oh, very static on the Duke of Somerset's line there. It's not a great deal going on.
It's going on break, babe. It's going on break.
Over much bigger. The Prince only a teenager and smaller, but they're using their weapons perfectly.
Reminds me of James Corden.
And both armies looking on
James
is also
Corden.
giving time for Lancaster to straighten their line and make a more solid army. And the Prince has landed a whack across the back of the King, who clearly felt that blow even if it didn't penetrate his armour.
Yorkist cavalry announcing their presence there.
And the two royal men are joining battle again. But now they're separating as the Yorkist cavalry comes in to try and cut off the Prince. Charging through the Lancaster. Hitting Lancaster with maximum impact. And the rest of the Yorkist army advancing on both wings to match it.
You could actually hear the thump as they hit each other there.
Yes, that's as fast as anybody can move in armour.
And the Duke of Gloucester's men just going in there with good steady pace. They're going to do a good job of work here because that's what they do. And Somerset tried to lead a wedge in to run a hole through them, succeeded. Somerset now apparently leading the field.
Yes, he's running.
He's running away.
Yes,
He's suffering, legging it
yes.
in the direction of the alley. I know what he's doing.
He's taking sanctuary.
He is, thank
The
you.
cowardly rat. And leaving his men to die. And if your commander abandons his post, there's not much hope for the men. And you can see Somerset's men being felled like ripe fruit. Now their commander has gone. Their bodies littering the ground in the centre. The Lancastrian line is collapsing. It's blatantly clear now who's lost.
A number of the Lancastrians now actually being chased off the field. into the arms of the river.
The only question now is whether the young prince can get away. His battle is lost, his army is collapsing, but he is the hope of an entire royal family. And if he can only get to safety, then there'll be another war, another time between the two sides. To single combat once again. Remember, when they tried this before, the prince did extremely well. And the king is too proud to refuse. But his bodyguard goes forth, the prince tackles Edward's bodyguards and overcomes them both. The 18-year-old is a champion soldier. He is also exhausted and at this moment very much alone. And having allowed his bodyguards to try and do the work for him, King Edward himself is now insulting and challenging the prince.
It was never yours! You have no royal blood within you! Your mother converses with that traitor Beaufort and has sired you!
Edward the King has just delivered the ultimate insult to the teenage boy. He's told him he wasn't the son of his father and that his mother had produced him with the Duke of Somerset. That is something that no red-blooded prince or no red-blooded person
Well, it's quite an
can
insult, isn't
ignore.
it? You've seen the Duke of Somerset, I mean.
And now they're going to fight to the death. And the prince has landed a hard blow on the king. Not enough to leave enough to breathe. And this time, Edward
Oh, he's lost his sword.
a fatal blow upon the prince's sword arm. And
Oh!
has run him through. And the hope of Lancaster bleeds out his life. The royal crown of England on a helmet is brought forward to taunt him as he lies mortally wounded.
My family will rule England above yours!
And the king callously kicks the dying boy
Before administering the coup de grace.
and cuts his throat as the boy has cried Lancaster in defiance. And there is no doubt now who is the victor here. Just over 10 more years and then died. And here, history undoes itself beautifully as the re-enactors flow Edward and the Prince of Wales, happy father, having done a great job.